I
Oh,
don't know if audio will come through or not.
you want to just test it quick?
I take it that's a no.
I take it that's a no. So why don't we just exit and we'll just start. Keep it simple. We can bring the alumni stuff later on.
We are live.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for joining us. This is our first panel, so we just thank you for being patient and bearing with us as we go through all these technical difficulties. It's a really great pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Megan. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I've been a mentor on 971 for the last 4 years, and yeah, I will be your moderator for today. I'm lead queuer for the San Francisco Regional for the past 2 years, and last year I did the Silicon Valley Regional. So I've been a lead queuer for about 40 plus teams at both events at least. And if anybody else wants to introduce themselves, they're more than welcome to. And I will share my screen to show you a photo of all of us.
Sure, I'll jump in. Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm head referee for about the past 8 seasons. 6 seasons, a referee for the past 9 seasons. And yeah, primarily in the San Francisco and Silicon Valley regionals, but I've also grew up in Florida, so I refereed quite a few seasons down in the now Orlando regional, as well as in the Turkey regional when I lived over in Switzerland for the past few years. So yeah, referee, head ref, and been involved in FIRST for over 20 years.
Alrighty. Oh, hey everybody, I'm Aren. I was LRI 2017, 2018, basically when time commitments allow. Been an FRC alumni since 2005 and mentor since then. Took this last year off with some other commitments I have going on. But I've been a robot inspector plenty of times and then dove into being LRI when I had the capability to do it and bandwidth to do it. And have been building robots and working on stuff for a long time.
Hi, I'm Ed. I'm a FTA. It's been FTAing since 2017. Been involved in FIRST since 2001.
Oh my gosh. Ed, you're so much cooler than your brief intro. Ed also does a bunch of other cool stuff that has been involved in 971 for a while. But as you can tell from our panel, we have a really great group of folks who have been key volunteers in the Bay Area for a really long time and even beyond that. So it's a real pleasure to be here today. We're just going to do really quickly some questions that we had for you that we started with. Please feel free to use the Slido if you have any questions. That's a really good place to contact us since we've turned off the chat function. But if anybody else has anything they'd like to mention before we begin, this is a good time for that too. Some common myths we hear about our roles are useful.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll start with. Common myths. I know as a head ref, I've had numerous people walk up to me over the years and just been like, how much do you get paid to be a head ref? Or how much do you get paid to be a ref? And I want to make it very clear that head refs and refs do not get paid in FIRST Robotics. We are volunteering because we enjoy getting yelled at. No, I'm kidding.
No bribes in there.
No bribes. No. I always say I like reffing because you get the best view of robotics. And being on a drive team when I was in high school, graduating and realizing, oh wow, like the view from the stands is just not as interesting. Like, of course, people in the stands have a very good perspective as well. But I like that action of being down in the field. So I started off with like field reset, and I was like, no, there's probably other things to do as well. And
I can tangent off that one real quick. Like I ended up in the robot inspector role because then it is completely appropriate and required that I stick my head inside of every robot at the event.
Exactly.
Because that's what I want to do.
When you're on the drive team, you get to watch all of your matches, and then you're off in the pits. When you're a referee or head ref, you are watching every match, so you get to see all of the highlights and get to really, really know the game. So that's one of the. So yeah, common myth: head refs are not paid. refs are not paid. We're volunteering because we believe in first in the future. So yeah.
Thanks so much for that. Aaron, Ed.
I'm going to pretty much reiterate the same thing, is that FTAs are not paid. We are a volunteer role. Although I've been told we are considered unpaid staff. But,
Whoa.
ooh, yeah. But, yes.
So
we're also,
LRIs get paid in delicious food, mainly at the San Francisco Regional. It's pretty good. And that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and a common myths on the robot inspector side is I think some teams aren't entirely clear with regards to what the goal of the LRI is, and lots of times it's to give you a hard time. It's no, the goal of the LRI is to get every robot there legal and competing on the field, and that's it. I mean, there's not much conspiring against you going on, etc. It's what do we want? People legally playing the game on the field, and it's as simple and dry cut as that.
I think for me, just as being a lead cure, while I don't haven't been doing it as long as some people
Yeah, we're losing Megan.
do, is people where to go, and while agree through, I'm coming out.
It's fine. I think we can still hear you. Okay, while Megan's sorting out.
Sorry, I was being told to move, but am I good now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to share your slide again, but otherwise, yeah, we're good.
Oh yeah, I stopped sharing. But yeah, some people think that being lead cure is all just about like telling people where to go, but we're also kind of responsible for the event being on time. So Ed has told me a bunch like, hey, make sure the cycle times are good so that way everybody gets to their matches on time. So the better a lead cure can do their job, the happier everybody is overall. So maybe Ed could also correct me if he feels like that's inaccurate, but at least that's how it's been in my experience.
Yeah, usually when I talk about cycle times, it's on a practice day when we actually try and practice actual matches and want teams ready to go, so we can kind of gauge how the robots are doing and kind of gauges if we can. A lot of our events are really big, like Silicon Valley Regional. We got 58 to 60 teams. I can't get 10 matches there, but there's a big difference between 8 or 9 matches per team. So if we can get nice smooth practice days where we'll try and give you guys 9 matches for the main competition on Friday and Saturday.
Right.
Oh, I do have one other set of common myths. Teams are allowed in the pits during ceremonies, but only 5 people. And pay attention to the anthem. There's a whole section at the event manual about it. If your regional isn't like this, feel free to go bring it up to the powers that be. Things happen all over the place in different ways because different people are different people. But that one's in the manual. And also, First recommends against yelling robot in the pits for a good reason, because it adds a whole lot of noise to an environment that doesn't need it. I catch people off guard occasionally with both of those items. So,
we have a few questions already. This is super exciting.
Wow.
One person said they didn't hear my intro. So yeah, hi, I'm Melissa. I'm a head ref in the Bay Area, so primarily the San Francisco and Silicon Valley regionals. I was going to be Silicon Valley regional head ref this year, so hopefully that happens again. And just a referee in numerous events. I've done the Bay Area events as well as the Orlando regional. That's where I grew up in Florida, so I tend to try to go back for that one. And Turkey regional last year in Istanbul, so that was super exciting. And IRI and Festival of Champs and all sorts of fun places. Cool. Okay, so one question that's been uploaded is, what is an example of a bad experience you've had in an event? And what about a really great experience or favorite moment?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't think of any bad experiences on my end, to be honest.
I was going to let somebody else jump in on it first.
You go ahead.
The hardest part from an LRI perspective is when there's a large mismatch in expectations, or something was read wrong in the manual that is clearly not legal, but thanks to the manual being brand new every year, there's always going to be random things that it's effectively Rev 1 of a game every year. I might get Rev 2 next year. Weird. But so occasionally I'll find a newer team that ends up with like bumper sections too short, and it's like, okay, well, this is actually giving you some advantage, and that does need to be fixed. And it's finding those types of discrepancies that require a lot of work, that usually cause the most strife with regards to people complaining that LRIs in general are causing them grief. When the goal is getting everybody on the same playing field, playing the game legally per the manual. So that's the type of thing that makes the roughest situations for robot inspectors in general. From on the good side, some teams roll with that very easily, and typically anybody who does get hot-headed about it tends to be on the mentor side, which just makes it more interesting because that's conversation adult to adult, okay, and then oftentimes you can talk to students, and sometimes they'll be more adult than the mentors. But on the positive side, being able to work with all those different teams, especially some of the newer ones, and be able to, from the robot inspector side, give some input just from the amount of background many robot inspectors have to make something just work that last 2% in terms of literally helping fix the robot. That happens more often than you think, to be, oh, hey, you can actually score points in the field now, as opposed to just sitting there, or as opposed to just driving around. Those are fun.
Bad experience. I wouldn't say it's a bad experience, but it's definitely one of the most unique ones. The first year I head refed, that was Recycle Rush back in the day. And this was back in DC area. I was in grad school, and it was at the Patriot Center, which is this huge arena on the George Mason University campus, where they held, they called it the DC Regional, but it was technically in Virginia at that point. This was before Chesapeake went to districts. And a fire alarm went off in the middle of the event. And it was my first time head reffing. So I was just like, what do we do? But honestly, it was just like,
this wasn't in the training.
It was definitely not in the training. So it was definitely a great experience to just see how quickly everyone were a lot of the key volunteers just kind of ran together. Like, okay, so I was in charge of like making sure everyone that was on the field like went out the exits, and all the different key volunteers, wherever they were in the arena, cleared everyone out. And it was like a false alarm. I think there was something that like it triggered in one of the concession stands up above, but the entire arena was cleared in less than 5 minutes. It was very impressive. And then we went back in and picked right back up, and everything was good. But it wasn't like a bad experience, but it was just somewhat like, I don't know. That was the only time in, like I said, the over 20 years I've been involved at first, where a fire alarm went off in the middle of a robotics competition. And it was just like, what do we do? Like, these are not things I think about happening here. And then my favorite moment would just be at Champs a few years ago. I was head reffing, and one of the mentors walked up to me from a team in Turkey and like shook my hand, and he was just like, it's so like an honor to like be able to see like a woman in a position of power, just because a lot of the girls on our team like don't see like examples of like women in lead positions, like for like science and STEM related type things. And that was like, I like started choking up. I was just like, wow, that's not like, so I'm just doing this because I like it for fun. I'm not doing it like to be a model or anything. But it was kind of like a very enlightening moment. Like, oh wow, like people are like noticing, and this is like this is bigger than just me. So that was a fun highlight.
Yeah, that is pretty cool, Melissa. I guess for me, my bad experience would mostly be at off-season events, just because if you don't think things through well in terms of like event flow, then everyone's just like the whole time. So just if anybody's ever planning an off-season event, just thinking about where robots go and when is really important. But I guess the best experience I have would probably be seeing teams like be really thankful that they get to compete. I guess and being really happy when they win. I like seeing underdogs do really well. So I guess that's not like a particular one experience, but just something that I like in general. So if Ed has anything else to share, I bet people would like to hear from him too.
I don't have any really specific bad experiences. Kind of a couple interesting one where we had one year right as we hit the MC said go, we lost power for about we had no, so just dropped out, just sat in the dark for about 5 minutes before everything came back. That was it was a little funny just because it was like the perfect timing just to lose everything right as we say go.
I mean, Gear Springs in 2017's got to be up there for you.
Yeah, those were a little difficult. Had a few people complaining that we were that the blue line or the especially in the finals when you get the Red Alliance is winning just too much, and it's like that tends to happen.
To give them more points.
Yeah. So
that's so funny. Okay, another question we have had is, what's the biggest oopsie you see teams making at competitions? I think this kind of can lead directly into best practices that we'd have. Biggest oopsie, I will say, people not reading the manual.
I will say people not reading the manual.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say teams not paying attention to the green lights or lack thereof.
People not moving their robot carts when they get them to the field.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. You gotta move your robot. Huh?
You gotta start listing them on eBay. That you know, take a picture, list it on eBay.
Yeah, if you're on Drive Team and you move your robot cart after you put your robot on the field, you are like 5 to 10 times ahead of everybody else. So just do that whenever you can, and be as polite as you can to the volunteers who are dedicating their time to helping you compete as well. Because we do this for free and because we like you and robots.
I just wanted to clarify, when we say read the manual, like I think a lot of people, when especially kickoff happens and you zoom right in on like the game in
the field,
game in the section, the field section, but there's a lot more to that manual outside of that. There's the tournament section, which a lot of people don't really think about, but if you become a high performing team, the tournament section becomes very important. You have to like know about what does the breakdown look like? What is the concept of tie breaking look like? How does the whole elimination process or playoff process?
Yeah, nobody likes seeing the teams where you go out there for alliance selection. There's somebody seated 6th who has clearly never been there, and it's just like staring around and everybody starts screaming numbers. You got to be prepared enough that you know what to do in that situation.
Yeah. And then there's other manuals, like that's the other thing. There's the game manual, but then there's also like the event manual, which is all about like the safety and like the process of like what to expect at the event and things you should bring and like what happens on practice day, what happens on qualification day 1. So like, and these are all things that there are multiple manuals in first, and I think everyone should be aware at least to read through the static ones, the ones that don't necessarily change from year to year. Just check in on them annually just to see if anything's changed or updated. And then the game manual, read the entire manual, just because there is a lot going on there that can come in handy, especially if you're on the field with the robot.
Yeah, best practices from the inspection side typically ends up being obviously best case is you show up with your robot ready to roll, take it and go. Okay, great, everything's good. I'm hoping that gets more streamlined now with the bag gone, in terms of bringing robots to events and not needing to go through and revamp everything at the event. But typically in the past, it was, oh, hey, some teams show up, they're ready to go. Other teams show up and they have a very detailed checklist, all parts like labeled out, all upgrades they want to make, and they go to town there. And then the second they need an inspector, go grab an inspector. But the ones that have the roughest time come in with no plan and lag till the very, very end, and give the host team for SFR crap for this, because they're the ones who always like last people to be inspected or second to last. It's like, come on, guys. But just having that plan and being ready to roll when you get to go, when the doors open.
Mm-hmm. Ed, do you have any best practices or a biggest oopsie you've seen?
Best practices, I mean, for me, we have practice day. Practice day is one for your robots to test, but it's also to make sure the field's working. And your driver station and all that set up. So I mean, try and come to at least one of your practice matches. I know some teams want to make a bunch of changes, and that does eat up some of that time, but you should really try and get to an actual practice match. I mean, we try and give you lots of opportunity. The other thing that I see is regards to your driver station. I highly recommend teams have a dedicated computer that's just the driver station, and at worst, also your programming laptop. Because most problems we have are when your laptop's got some, a bunch of different antivirus or firewall softwares that does interfere with the field operation. And you're always best to, if you can have something that's dedicated, that isn't part of the school network. I know it's hard with some teams, but like I had one team that we couldn't use their laptop because it was locked to the district network. And we could sit there and mess around with it for like 5 minutes every time they came to the field and get it working. But it just, if you have something that is just a clean install of Windows with just driver station, is the best laptop that will work with the field. And I mean, you can get some fairly cheap laptops. Driver station doesn't require a lot of resources to run. So
then another thing on the getting to a practice match, you might actually notice a concerted effort between the field crew, the queuers, and the robot inspectors to try to make sure that happens. Because if you go there, you figure out it works, you're good. If you're working on upgrades, what's gonna do better for you overall? Going to your first match working and not having the upgrade quite installed, or going to your first match maybe not working because you didn't check anything, but your upgrades are installed, but they're not moving. So it's risk mitigation in terms of make sure you connect to the field and can get the basics down, then make sure you can get slightly better performance. Like,
yeah, I would much rather spend 10 minutes on Thursday trying to figure out why your laptop isn't connecting or your robot's not connecting than trying to get it, then only having 2 minutes to try and do it and having to bypass you for your match because we've got a very tight schedule and I don't have time to spend a lot of time troubleshooting when it comes to qualification rounds.
And having to make the call on missing matches or bypassing teams in matches is one of the hardest ones. So if you can get ahead of that one, just so nobody has to make that call because you just work, that's much better overall.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one other question that's popped up in the Slido, and then we can move to maybe Megan's unless others come up. How much training do you have to go through for your position, and how hard is it to get involved?
I'll dive in for robot inspector side of stuff. Training wise to be a robot inspector, it's handy to have been a student or mentor on the technical side of a team, but not required. So oftentimes I'll get random engineers, teachers, tech people from industry that companies like sponsor companies throw at you. And it's easy enough to pair them up with more veteran inspectors to go through and figure out what to look for. And then if you're still not totally comfortable there, you can pair up with somebody for like the entire first day or the first half of the day, or go through and be completely free to say, oh, okay, I don't know what that one is. So I'll get right back to you. So the robot inspector bar is not super high. To be a LRI usually ends up being getting nominated by an LRI or several other robot inspectors to push forward to go for that role for a competition. So I think I did like 3 or 4 competitions as a robot inspector, but then it was also working at a company working on FRC parts. So I got a couple. I think Alan Gregory was one of the people that nudged me towards it for being an LRI, who was also an LRI. And then training once every 2 years, they fly out to Manchester, like a weekend after kickoff, or sometime around there. Yeah, for some in-person training on nuances of that year. And there's also an LRI Slack. And yep.
Yeah, FTAs, there's actually kind of 3 paths to an FTA. First being a CSA for a number of years, although they do prefer you to have some field experience. So the FTAA is a major role into being an FTA, or being for myself, it was actually being a field supervisor. can lead up. And for me, I was a field supervisor for like 4 years, and then we had a vacancy of we didn't have an FTA for Silicon Valley. This was actually before San Francisco started. So I kind of asked the RD that, hey, I'm interested in this role, and they sent my name to first, and I had other recommendations from other FTAs, and kind of that was my path. As far as training, I get a lovely trip to New Hampshire in January. Almost been snowed in once, but we do spend a weekend in New Hampshire to go over. We build all the elements of the field, and kind of go over some robot training, control system training, and then the field software. I have to be at the event. I need to be able to troubleshoot robots, troubleshoot the field, and troubleshoot the computer. So there's quite a bit to cover.
So for me, I had told the regional director, Teresa, that if she ever needed help, I was available. I really wanted to get involved on the volunteer side because I know that FIRST needs a lot of volunteers, and 971, as like an outreach and awards mentor, didn't really need my help so much at competitions because I couldn't really, help troubleshoot the robot in those circumstances. But being a volunteer seemed like a really good role for me to help contribute to my team, but also give back to FIRST after being involved in high school and as a mentor. So just telling your regional director, like, hey, I exist, I'm available if you need help, is a really good way to start becoming a volunteer. And I guess in regards to queuing specifically, you could always need queuers. It's always good for an event to have at least 6. And if you're interested, you can go to first.org, and I believe there's like its own separate portal for signing up to be a volunteer. So that's just something for you to know in general, and that will help volunteer coordinators out a lot if you're ever interested.
Yeah, same goes if you were interested in just being around the field and you want to, field reset. There's, the training, you'll basically get trained by either an FTA or your field supervisor. So it requires no experience.
On the job, real quick training.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great roles for students. I know there's a lot, especially larger teams. You've got, students that maybe you've got a half day of scouting, and then you're kind of free, and just if you don't want to just sit in the stands, you can come down and work the field. I mean, a lot of events have no problem with resetters that can only do a half day or 1 day of the event, and it's a great way to help out the event.
You can scout better when you're right next to the field.
Yeah, it's great. You get to sit about 10 feet off the side of the field.
For referees, it's a little bit more involved. Anyone can sign up to be a referee as long as you hit the minimum requirements for FIRST. I think to be a regular referee, you have to be, I believe, 19 now. And to be a head ref, I believe you have to be 23. I don't know. It's been a while. They put in these requirements relatively recently, but you sign up, and then the head refs get assigned by FIRST headquarters, actually. So that's like, to be a head ref, you have to have been like essentially refereeing for a bit of time, and then there has to be a need for you to be for there to be a head ref. And there are new events coming online every year at FIRST. So I know in the Bay Area, at least, we've had a new regional come online every year for the past few years, and in California, definitely. So it's kind of exciting that we have like a very strong referee pool, but also a strong head ref pool as well, because there's just so many events here. To be a referee or a head ref, you have to take a test, and you actually have to study the manual and take the test that essentially about a month before regionals start. And then as a head ref, you have to take an additional test, and every few years you have to do like a more formalized training to be a head ref. In the past, it used to be you'd actually go to Manchester and get to all the new head refs or the people who are refreshing. Every 3 years, you have to do the head ref refresher course. They would go in person, but recently, Ed alluded to it. Manchester in the winter is not the nicest place to get to, it's not the easiest place to get to. Let me just put it that way. There's a lot of snow, If you're trying to get there from a major airport, it can sometimes be an adventure, is the way I put it. So they've started doing a lot more virtual trainings, and just a lot of there's a lot of Q&A sessions, and people are checking. The head refs are constantly checking in with each other throughout the season. So there's like weekly digest and stuff to just learn about what are the lessons learned from the previous week and such like that. So it's very involved. It's more involved being a head ref than just being a ref. I consider them being two completely different jobs. As a ref, you are fully focused on the field, and typically like a portion of the field, and you're working with your team around you, which is one kind of job. And as a head ref, you are like managing that team, of course, who's watching the field, but you're also dealing with like question boxes and the scorekeepers and the FTAs and the LRIs and the lead QA.
That's one thing I've seen is a difference between like LRI. I get a little more time to deliberate on what calls are, so there's less pressure as opposed to what you guys have to do in terms of, and this is that call now, and you got to make that a lot faster. So I think that makes sense as far as why training is a little more intensive.
Yeah, for sure. And Ed alluded to this, and as well as Megan, like there's like the pressure of like making sure you're calling things as quickly but accurately as you can, but also there's like a show and a feel, like a competition that you have to kind of generally try to keep on schedule as much as possible. Obviously, like if there's something that's really complicated, like especially towards like finals and such, or qualifying, or rather eliminations, you try to like you'll pause and make sure that things are calling things as accurately as possible. But sometimes that requires you need to call into headquarters because there's some anomaly, and you need to make sure that you get like the blessing from Frank Merrick, who's actually like typically sitting on standby watching all the competitions virtually. So there's a lot involved with head ref. But that said, it's a lot of fun. I recommend that anyone who's interested in becoming a referee, I would say volunteer first to just be anywhere field side. Just like try like doing field reset, doing like queuing, just being down there, because it is a very physical job. You're on your feet the entire time of the competition. There's no you do, like if you're a referee, you get breaks every 15 matches, so you're on for 15, off for 5. But as head ref, you're just always on there. And like there have been times where you just like literally, like I tell my team like beforehand, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna run to the restroom after the next match, and like you like literally dash, and you just hope that people are nice and let you in because you're a referee, because there's always lines throughout
the other part from the volunteering perspective. If you want an easier time, there's a really busy Thursday for inspectors, and then Friday and Saturday are a whole lot of hanging out, helping people fix robots if necessary, and it's a lot more lower key.
Actually, we have quite a few refs who do both. They'll be an inspector on Thursday, on practice day, and then they'll become a ref for the next few days of the competition. They tend to be more experienced with first. It's not like a first year type thing, but it's kind of a fun way to wear different hats,
Let's sing. And so running off the more experience with first part. So like one of the reasons I became a robot inspector and went for being a lead robot inspector is, as a student, I had several instances where I believed lead robot inspectors or robot inspectors overreached and did not have the right attitude towards things. So coming from a competitor perspective into that position, it was, if I do this, I can make this part of the event not suck. So, okay, I'm going to do that and come into the event with the attitude of, hey, this is entirely for teams. No power trips from my side, like teams on field, go. So I would highly encourage alumni of teams with experience in that area to help out and make it a great event. Because the event's ran by people, for people. Like, so if you get good motivation, well motivated people in the right spots, you can make for a great event.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Aaron. I think we're all first alumni. Yeah. I think we all did robots in high school too. And I just like Aaron's propaganda. Like, if you want to change something, you have to be part of that change. So
that's like, the world's run by those who show up. So if I show up to do the job, okay.
Gotcha. Do we have any other questions on the Slido?
No more questions on the Slido. I know you had some, Megan, you wanted to chat about.
I do have some. A lot of them we did cover. I like that our audience was thinking along the same lines as us, but one question that I had was, as key volunteers, how would you say the time commitment of being a volunteer compares to being a mentor? Like how much is it to do how much does it take from you all to participate on the field during events in these really important responsibilities?
Well, as the FTA, I'm usually one of the first people there and one of the last to leave. As far as an individual event goes, I show up about 7:30, 8 a.m. on Wednesday, because I'm there to help. Or we got to watch the truck get unloaded. Most of the field setup doesn't really start till about noon, or a little bit later, depending on how much the production has to do. But and then we have to build the field on Wednesday, and then the following days, we got a 7:15. All the key volunteers have a meeting at 7:15 each morning. And then I'm usually one of the last people to leave after making sure all the teams are out of the pits and everyone else has gone home.
I'm not there quite as early as Ed, but head ref, or actually all the key volunteers have to be there. We typically meet virtually, like probably the week or a few weeks before the event, and then we have to be there very early in the morning for every day of the event, just to like get in a run of show from the production teams. Like they'll like go through if there's any special things like multiple anthems, for instance, or any key speakers or special speakers. I know in San Francisco Regional, we always have special speakers come through, which is kind of exciting. So like we get like a rundown of that, make sure that everything's good to go from all of the different volunteer sides, everyone checks in. And yeah, we do that every morning. And then, then it's just a full day. I think it's, I've never really fully mentored a team. I'm kind of, this is kind of a relatively new role for me. So still kind of learning that, but I think that for the competition, in addition to the training and then the day of, like, it's a little bit of a time commitment. But for me, this is the way I give back to first, and this is the way I like staying involved. So it's like a really intense like March, April period, and then the rest of the year it's pretty chill. So it balances out.
Yeah, from the robot inspector side, it ends up being get there really early Thursday and a very long day Thursday getting everybody through inspection, but then Friday I'll show up like right barely at the line for the key volunteer meeting. And same for Saturday. Saturday is the rush before ELAM started getting everybody reweighed and re-okayed. But Thursday is the biggest time commitment there. You have to be there all 3 days as far as you're the final person to answer legal or not legal for robot stuff. But then in the lead up to it, from an LRI perspective, it's a couple meetings, like the preceding like month or so, and getting email addresses of all your inspectors who are registered in TIMS, VIMS, and making sure that they've all done their little online test and any questions people have, or if you need to hunt down more, that type of stuff. So the time commitment's not that big, and then especially from a mentoring is a lot more. If you're looking for a little more low-key time involvement in FRC, mentoring is definitely the way to go, as opposed to hardcore team mentoring. But obviously, mentoring is a giant gray area too.
I guess for me, for being a lead queuer, Thursday is probably the most chaotic day because not everybody's ready. So you just have to be really fluid and flexible. Friday and Saturday make it easier, but you're still there the entire day because, responsible for the timeliness of robots. And then once you hit the semis, I'm basically home free. I guess it's a little challenging for me to balance being a mentor and a volunteer because, I still want to help 971 compete, just in terms of like awards. And so I will like take a couple moments to help the kids just build up their confidence again, because that's really important for me as a mentor to feel like I'm supporting them. It doesn't take too much time, and volunteering is kind of a really easy way to give back to first. Not easy, but much simpler.
I think you touched on a solid point there with regards to being a key volunteer at an event your team is at.
Yes.
Personally, as LRI at both the events I did have 971 at them, and I was actively mentoring at the time. So that one turns into, hey, other experienced robot inspector, you will be covering everything related to 971. I am not part of any of those decisions, And I encourage you to be even harder on them with regards to every single line item they must abide by. It's just abdicate all responsibility with regards to that. And luckily it's easy to do from a robot inspector side. But that is something that you need to keep track of, especially if all of your robot inspectors are typically also associated with teams, and people are usually pretty good about knowing who they should or shouldn't make the call on, but just be aware of that type of stuff.
Right.
The NIMS forum also has some of the stuff with regards to signing that you won't do anything like that.
100%. And you even you find yourself even as a volunteer, like Aren mentioned, holding your team to an even higher standard because you know that you're responsible for them doing well and the event itself. So I feel like I did sort of help 971 become better because I was like, hey, what are you guys doing? And sort of play finger wagging. But yeah, so
that's just it was I had a fun conversation between myself and Austin Shu about how compressors are supposed to work. And that was one I didn't want to have. But it happens.
Just a plug for anyone who might be tuning in. Feel free to ask questions on Slido, which is linked in the description down below, or sly.do, event code Spartan series.
Yes, we do have about 13 minutes left.
Megan, any other questions that you have lined up?
Yes. So, I guess one question that I have is, how do we balance, taking care of the event while also making sure teams have a really awesome experience? Have we ever found that sometimes these things come in conflict with each other, and just how do we balance the team experience while making sure the event runs smoothly?
I think one of the things there, so far from what I've seen, events that have a whole lot of key volunteers that are either have been on teams or actually mentors on teams tend to play that line a lot nicer. I've been at other ones when I was a student, we actually got skipped over in a match because the field was 20 minutes ahead of schedule, and we had been working on something and not allotted that time to fix something, and so that match came and we got skipped because they were ahead of schedule. And whoever made that call, I'm betting, was not a very involved team member at any point in time. Just with regards to the schedule is a schedule. If you are early and you get to slow down, wait till you run at that time. And for me, it's easy to make that call in terms of yeah, it sucks to lose all the time you got ahead, but you are there for those teams to compete. So that's the call. So I tend to notice that events with more team-based volunteers coming up have a lot easier time playing that line.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that having a key volunteer staff that's loaded with alumni, just it helps a lot of the tight spots of the event go smoother, because it's really easy to perspective take and think about when you were a student, what would you want this outcome to be, or what would you want to know or be told? So we've had 3 really great years with the San Francisco Regional. And we always say that it's partly because every key volunteer is an alum, which is super exciting. And a lot of the people actually on the field are alum from First. So we just, there's just a smoothness and
it's an understanding of why you're there.
Yeah. And an understanding, of how you want it to go in an ideal situation, because you remember how stressful it was being on a team and having decisions made, or these things come up and just not being told what was going on, or what was not aware of what the state of the things of what was going on. So I think sometimes, especially as a ref, you sometimes see, I think I see the best and the worst of people at competitions. I think sometimes you have to balance addressing people's concerns or questions, and sometimes teams will not take an answer and they'll just hang out in the question box or really want clarification, or and that's fine. Like, and sometimes you answer it as much as you can, and then you're just like, we have to move on with the competition. We have to keep going, and we try to minimize that as much as we can. But sometimes you just have to be like, okay, we have to continue on. But luckily that doesn't happen too often, and any contentious calls are typically thoroughly discussed, and there's a whole team of people who are there and trained and understanding and trying, and we're all there to help mentor and make sure that experience is fair and even for everyone as well. So I think that's so that can sometimes be hard and sometimes not what students want to hear.
I keep a certain level of mental moderation, and also have informed other people of this attitude of this is a high school robotics competition. That means there's a certain emotional bar that you should never really have to go above in terms of maintain professionalism. If it doesn't go your way, there's opportunities for recourse and going up the chain, etc. And keep it professional, and you should be able to pursue those. If you don't agree with something, it's not the end of the world. It may be suboptimal in that situation for your team. You get to choose how you make it through that, but at the end of the day, you're building some cool stuff and playing with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great advice, Aren. Ed, do you have anything else to add? Totally cool.
Think of.
Okay, so Ed just basically seconds everything Melissa and Aren said, so that's cool.
That adds a lot of weight to my opinions.
It does. It does. Do we have any questions on the slide, Melissa? If not,
yeah.
I can. Okay, cool.
One person asked about training. We had kind of touched it before, but we discussed the time at events. What about preparing for the event and training? Yeah, so just to reiterate, in case this person joined later, at least for refereeing, there's some training you have to do ahead of time. So you have to actually pass a test to be a ref, and then to be a head ref, you have to pass an additional test, the head ref test, and then head ref is a lot more involved because there's weekly check-ins and forums and virtual blogs and there's just a lot more involved, just because as a head ref you have to help run the event, not just run the field. You're also one of the key volunteers who's syncing with the FTA, or the lead robot inspectors and the Qers and the volunteer coordinators and the all of these things. So there's a bit of time involved when you're being a head ref, but I mean, I love it. I think it's so much fun, especially having been an alum and been just a student, just casually going along oh, my robot, yes, it's kind of cool. But now it's now I have to think about all the robots and how they all perform on the field. So it's kind of exciting in that way.
Yeah. For me, being lead cure, I talked to my regional director beforehand and told her that I was interested in helping in any way that I could. So I think that was a similar path for Aren and Ed to some extent. Their roles are a little more involved, so they required a little more experience. I think Ed took 4 or 5 years to be an FTA. You can, Ed's nodding his head, yes. Yep. So some roles depend on how long you've been involved in first, because especially for FTA and LRI roles, you need to know more about troubleshooting and then mine in particular.
And then per what I think point Melissa made earlier, with regards, sometimes there are occasions where say you want to be an FTA, the area around you might not actually need one, and you basically get to choose to be okay with that or travel far to the places that do need one. But new events are popping up all over the place. I know LRIs is typically a bit of a shortage, as and they start asking you to cover multiple ones. That changes time commitments. But you might have to be okay with that and figure out another way to help out as best you can. I know I've had other LRIs come and just be normal robot inspectors at events I've been at. And if you are doing that, be sure to respect whoever is the LRI at the event, or said key volunteer at that event.
That happens a lot in with the ref teams in the Bay Area.
Well, I would have said
exactly. We'll have a ref team of 5, 3 of them are also head refs, in other events. So luckily we all have worked together in different ways. So it's a fun dynamic. But it is kind of interesting. Sometimes you have to be nope, I'm not head ref here. You have to go talk to.
I had another LRI helping out, and he told me I wasn't curmudgeon-y enough, and I'm like, oh, thanks.
This is a great last question, actually.
Oh, exciting. I'm excited.
Yes.
Okay.
What is one improvement that you wish First would do that would make your role easier?
I'm gonna let you go first, Ed.
Who
And I'm
wants
gonna
to
ponder this.
start? Yeah, I think it's Ed's turn.
I
I
don't.
feel like Ed has a list in his back pocket. No?
Not. I mean, we don't. Yeah, can't think of anything too much at the moment. I mean, they did just release, well, about 2 years ago now, but there's a nice little. It was actually another FTA that developed it, but they first integrated it. But we got a lovely app that I can track problems with robots, and it's all integrated with the schedule and everything like that, which really helps me when I see, hey, this team's come out to the field. The last 2 matches they've had the same problem. It helps me try and diagnose it, and also I can talk to resources and have other maybe, okay, hey, it's been 3 matches and they haven't sorted it out. I'll go up and talk to them. Hey, can I get you help? I know you're having obviously a code problem. Can I get it's great when 971 is at an event, because I know a lot of the students and some of the other mentors that I can hey, can you guys go help this team with this problem? And it makes makes troubleshooting really easy, because I had
control system advisors too. Yeah,
we have control system advisors and stuff like that. But sometimes it's they're backed up helping the rookie team that didn't know how to assemble their control system or stuff like that. Like, I actually had one down at the I went down to SoCal for an event, and so I didn't have I knew a few teams that were down there, but ended up having a team. I'm like, hey, they've missed 3 matches in a row. What's going on? I go talk to them, and they were a newer team, and they had burned out both their drive motors, and they didn't know. It's like, I mean, there's plenty of team, so I just go to some of the, I think I went to the Holy Cows because they were there. And I'm like, hey, can you guys help them change out their drive motors? I mean, they have them at spare parts, and they just didn't know the resources. So, but being able to, I mean, for me, that tracking app has made it great to be able to try and, because otherwise, as before, I was like, keeping notes on a little piece of paper and stuff, and you lose it and set it down. But I mean, that was something they've just implemented, and that's made my life a lot easier.
So I have noticed, and a lot of the things that were the bigger pain in the butt is like getting rid of the full sizing box that you had to set your thing down and slide it in and go, okay, it's just good. For here's a tape box on the ground, set your robot in it. Yep, you're inside of it. Okay, how tall is it? Great, done. That was a lot easier. The fact they got rid of the bill of materials is great, because chances in order to be able to be handed an Excel sheet or whatever of somebody's entire robot and thoroughly go over it to any level that made sense is not something that adds value or is going to be efficiently or accurately done at an event. So I'm kind of happy they got rid of that one, in terms of just, it's not adding to the event. There's a certain level of professionalism you could claim it adds, but if you want to do that on your own team, do that on your own team. So I'm happy they got rid of that one.
I guess for me, to answer this question more directly, because Ed and Aren just kind of like talked about things they liked that First changed. But for me, it'd be really cool if First gave little buttons that said be on time, or like little stickers that said be on time and be nice to your volunteers. That might be cute and probably low cost, but who knows? So that's marginal compared to what Ed and Aren have to deal with. So I really had no complaints overall from First, because they're calls that we are lead queuers are a part of, and we talk and share ideas, and First has done a pretty good job supporting us in general.
I think the biggest thing I would say is better radios to the refs. Luckily in SF and in Silicon Valley, Ed has his own set of like really epic radios that he's let the ref team use the past few years, and it's so great because it's like, when the mic's up, the mic's off, like you're not talking. When it's down, you get to talk, and multiple mics can be down, multiple people can talk to each other. It's just like it's real time, it's stream, like it just seems like such a little thing, but it makes being able to talk to each other real time during the matches so much better, so much better. And it's just like, you don't realize how stressful like the press the button, wait a second, talk to each other, wait a second, let go of the button is until you're trying to talk to and communicate to someone else. Like, are they over the line? Are they not? Like, and it's just like you're across the field and you're gesturing and like only one person can talk at a time. Like, just better radios. I think that would make every ref's life so much easier. Yeah. Great. There was a question someone asked about what's our favorite robot of all time of any team. I personally don't have one. All the robots like go in and out of my head like right after a match, so I can't answer that.
That's hard to pick one.
It is really hard.
I really like 1717 2012.
Oh,
it was a robot that looked like it was moving 3 miles an hour, but was scoring more balls than everybody else.
That's true.
Like it was just smooth as fast is like the definition of that.
I'm a little biased. I like 971's 2016 robot, as you can see behind me.
It's your background.
Yeah, it is my background. That's how much I like it. That robot inspired me to join 971. So it's just so cool. It does this whole like transformer thing.
Yeah?
And
really?
Yeah, and yeah,
like
it's so cool. Yeah, like that. But every time I see it, I go, wow. That's what I like.
Wow, that's way more stuff that needs to be on there.
Yeah.
I love 971's 2014 robot.
Oh.
So, I mean, the best part, here's a little field side story. I can't remember her name, but we had this girl. She was from the Buchanan Bird Brains. She was a freshman at the time. She was all of like 4'8". I mean, and couldn't have weighed more than 80 pounds, but she would not let the giant yoga balls get past her. And more than once, she would jump, grab the thing, land about 5 feet back from where she jumped from, catching it. It was the funnest thing to watch.
That's awesome. Great. Well, that's it from the Slido, and we're at time. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this. We have a full more 3 more days of sessions this week, always around this time. Saturday, I think it's a little bit earlier, but just check the sheet, and hope to see you tuning in to the rest of the Spartan series.
Yeah, thank you